Welcome to Pluribus for the rest of us. Today we're talking about Pluribus Season 1, Episode 7, titled The Gap. I'm Gil, here with my brother Adam. Say hello.
Hello.
And this is going to be our full take. We did our instant take right after the episode dropped on Apple TV, where we gave our immediate reactions. And now we're going to do a full recap and analysis. Adam, as we've had a few days for this episode to marinate, have your feelings toward it changed at all, evolved at all? Overall thoughts?
I love Manusos.
I thought you'd say that.
Yeah.
That was one of my big takeaways too. Since watching the episode the first time a few nights ago, it may have been solidified as my favorite of the series so far. I love all of the montages in this episode. They're so emotional. But especially the Manusos one, it's an emotional meditation on one of my favorite emotions, which is obsession, principle, focus on the task at hand.
A little rage, a touch of rage.
A touch of rage. Somebody telling you no, and you saying, I don't care what you think. So it was just, this is how much I loved it. I watched it again for the full take, of course, to prepare my notes. But in between the first time we watched it and watching it for the full take, I watched it on my own just for fun. And on top of that, when I was on the treadmill, I was like, I need a little boost. I put on the Manusos, the entire Manusos segment, and it kept me going. Daniel Faw, by the way, in Frothy Philosophy, I see you in the chat asking about Daniel. Unfortunately, he couldn't join us today. He had to return to his home planet of Kepler 22b. Hopefully, he'll be back sometime. We'll see. I think with that, Adam, should we just jump into the recap?
I was going to joke that I absorbed him and that he's...
This is a two-person hive mind.
Yeah.
Let's jump into the recap. And I'm going to pull up the screen share. So if you're watching, we have the visual enhancement. We begin with Carol returning from her trip to Vegas, and she's already humming to herself. It's the end of the world as we know it, parentheses, and I feel fine. Song by R.E.M. from 1987. And I would say with that kind of humming, I already started to get the feel that she's no longer really focused on saving the world. That's literally the name of the song. It's the end of the world, and I feel fine.
But does she really feel fine?
Well, I don't know. We'll get there. I think she wants to feel fine. I think at this point, she's telling herself she feels fine. Even trying to enjoy some of the little things in life. At the gas station, she calls Howard and asks him to turn on pump one. I'm never going to stop calling him that.
Yeah.
Asks him to turn on pump one. They turn the power on at the gas station. Calls again to request an ice-cold red Gatorade. I think it's called Fruit Punch. In the meantime, scratches some lottery tickets, grabs a ton of fireworks, and then a drone delivers that Gatorade. But it's not cold enough, so she calls back. It says smacks lips in the subtitles. I didn't say tepid. I didn't say lukewarm. I didn't even just say cold. I said ice cold. Do better next time. Scratches another lottery ticket and wins 10 grand. Gets back to driving, and now she's full on singing. It's the end of the world as we know it.
Demonetized.
No, I made sure to be slightly off key. If anyone says that singing was terrible, it was intentionally done that way to avoid a copyright claim. But listen to this, Adam. Before she says, and I feel fine, she goes, and I feel, and then it cuts off right there, and you get the ba, ma, na. It goes right into the starting. And when she's saying, and I feel, she's kind of exaggerating the look on her face. She almost looked angry to me. Like maybe she wasn't going to say, I feel fine. She was going to say, like, I feel effing fine in almost a sarcastic way. So I think cutting off in the middle of the lyric, great choice. Face. Yeah, look at that. Great choice to cut off there. Adds a dash of sarcasm. It makes it feel slightly off kilter. A crack in the facade.
I think the first crack in the facade, the first obvious one is when she wins the lottery, and it's just utterly meaningless.
Yeah, that's true. There's no joy coming. It's the equivalent of Kumba sitting down and winning that huge poker game. It's total fantasy. But I don't think she's barely even giving into the fantasy. It's almost like I think she takes joy in the fact, like a small, that's funny. I won the lottery, and it doesn't mean anything at all. It's almost a joke to her, I think. Like she's in on the joke, whereas Kumba isn't really. And then we see Carol's version of Kumbaing. We're at the 12-day, 20-hour mark. Sets off some of those fireworks. It's evening now. Has some beers. Sings that song, or she's humming it to herself. Na 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 na. The Stars and Stripes Forever. That's the name of it.
Now, how come? Why is it that Kumba is? It seems able to lie to himself, and it doesn't seem to bother him. Do you think we're going to learn more about where he's coming from? One thing I've thought about is, what if his life before all this really sucked? Because that would explain a lot.
I've had a similar thought, and partially I'm biased by having listened to the Insider podcast where the actor talked about the way he played it, and they talked about, maybe even Vince Gilligan said it. I forget. Somebody on the podcast said he's playing it like in his life he maybe wasn't all that popular, didn't feel all that loved. So to suddenly have the entire world looking at you and saying, we love you, we want to do anything you want to do, it is a major change of pace for him.
I like when during the poker game he has to the eye patch villain ends up congratulating him on his win, and he has to basically correct him, be like, you're not supposed to do that.
Yeah, I would say that was a major crack in his facade. By the way, in the chat, Frothy Philosophy 7000 is bringing up a few points I've seen online that we'll definitely talk about later. Carol, is she putting on any of this for show, trying to lull the hive into a false sense of security? Is Kumba doing that, trying to play happy, but really inside?
Sorry, go ahead.
Really inside, there's machinations. He's on the same page as Carol, but isn't as obvious about it.
Nah. We wanted to believe that maybe that's what Kumba was up to. You know, he's like, I'm doing the whole Playboy harem thing, and I'm having fun. But in part, it's just to make the hive think that I'm totally cool with this. And in the background, I'm either at least not cool with it, or at best, also trying to figure out how to undo it. That's wishful thinking on the viewer's part, including us, I think. That said, in terms of Carol doing this for show, I don't think it's a deliberate act, but I do think to an extent, like on a subconscious level, like fireworks are these things that go high up into the air and burst in waves of light and make a lot of noise and are meant to be attention grabbing. She could have done anything, and she basically made it her routine to just go out every night and just put on a giant light show in the sky. So that does seem like a cry for attention, even if she doesn't realize that's exactly what she's doing.
Yeah, I think kind of furthering that point, if you think about contrast, fireworks, these huge things that are meant to be witnessed by many people, it looks very bizarre when it's big fireworks and then just one person sitting there. And I think it emphasizes her total isolation, which kind of goes along with what you were saying in terms of a cry for help. I will say in general, I'm going to be very skeptical that a character is capable of putting on a Kumba style act, or what we're seeing here, a Carol style act, while inside be gaming the system somehow, working on some master plan. I think that's a very rare quality for human beings. It would be very hard for me to accept that two characters in the show are pulling that off, let alone one character. Yeah. So I come from a place of skepticism. But in terms of Carol, we'll definitely talk more about that when we get to sort of the third segment of this episode.
Yeah. Now, I do agree with some of those in the chat who are saying, there is more to Kumba than the really simple persona that you might take away from the way he chose to spend the apocalypse. You see the way he interacts with Carol one-on-one, it does seem to be a little bit more perceptive. Mm-hmm. And I do want to give him a little credit, and he does seem to have like some degree of sophistication to him. And I don't think we've seen anything to suggest that he's dumb. He just has certain interests that he's chosen to indulge in. It's also only, I don't know, what is it, like day 12 as far as what we've seen Kumba doing?
That's right.
Yeah. So
yeah, I agree with that. I do think people in the chat are saying there's more depth to Kumba. I agree. There may be more depth. Part of what tells me that is sometimes his face shows that he can see where Carol is coming from, even if his words don't exactly say it. Like when she talks about eating people, and he says, yes, that was troubling. And there is sort of a shy smile of like, yeah, I know it's kind of messed up. So I think there is a deeper recognition, but more depth doesn't necessarily mean this is all for show. Yeah. I think both can be true.
But like even with the eating people thing, it's messed up if you think of them as human, but they're not. You know?
Right. But I think as soon as you introduce the idea that this is reversible, that really changes the equation.
Well, I guess imagine having it get reversed, but you retain your memories and you know you've been eating human. That said, it's human derived. Is it human derived protein or human derived product?
Protein.
So, you know, by the time you're eating it, it's like that protein could have come from anywhere. It's so isolated.
I also think it helps that you're not eating it, you're drinking it. There's a difference for some reason.
I wonder what it tastes like.
We'll get back to that. We'll put that in the after show. Wolves.
We'll do a taste test. That's actually where Daniel went.
Yeah, he's cooking up a batch for us.
Oh, I was gonna say he is the batch.
Oh God. Okay, so Carol's.
I don't know. I think his particular batch would taste kind of weird.
Carol's
it wouldn't be a fair trial of HDP.
I agree. We need a test case. Okay, Carol is doing her fireworks and everything, and then she hears those wolves again. She howls back, and they kind of answer. Then she howls back even more aggressively, and they all stop. I think she's having a bit of fun, but I also think having her yell to animals further emphasizes her isolation.
Yeah.
It's sort of communicating, but communicating with a thing that can't quite communicate on your level. You're losing your humanity. You're hanging out with the animals. Which I will say, Adam, you asked, what would you do in this situation if you had access to anything? You know, how would you entertain yourself? I actually thought about it. I would try to get a pet. And I think trying to lure an animal, gain its trust, that would pass a month easy. And then once you're living with it, I think that could much further extend how long you could withstand this isolation.
Now, what do you think's going on with the animals? Because this disease was first incubated in a rat, which means and the rat even showed the whole convulsions thing before it kind of turned. What did it turn into?
Well, my read was that the rats that they were testing on did not show any signs of anything. It didn't seem to have any effect. So my interpretation has been that perhaps some animals could be carriers, but it doesn't actually plug them into a hive or impact them in any way. That's my current interpretation.
Yeah, I think that's probably true because it would just get really complex. It would be unnecessarily complicated to introduce an element of like, oh yeah, the animals that are now part of the hive too. But I don't know. Who knows?
Yeah, perhaps we'll see.
Yeah.
The next day, Carol continues to entertain herself with some golf.
Wait. Let's not gloss over the fact also what the wolves represent, which is these things that were digging up Helen's corpse. And now she's kind of making a mockery of them.
Yeah, that's true.
And let's not forget that a lot of her antics now that she's going into Kumba mode are alcohol driven, or at least alcohol supplemented.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, I mentioned the beers when she set off the fireworks, which is we did see that when she was starting to get more proactive, when she got out the whiteboard, there was at least one scene where she picked up a bottle and put it back down. So having something to do and be productive, that is one of the things that stops her from feeling the need to indulge.
Yeah.
Golf. She's on the golf course. She's singing.
I like how she gets all dressed up in the golf outfit.
Yeah. I mean, she wants to play the role. She wants to act like everything. She wants to act like I feel fine.
Yeah.
We see some of those animals we've heard about, a rabbit. We're going to see a bison in a bit. And she's continuing to sing. This time it's I'm All Right by Kenny Loggins, 1980. You can see there's a running theme to some of these songs. And I think, not that the singing needs to be spelled out for why she's doing it, but they talked about it on the Insider podcast. And when you watch some of these reality shows, for example, where someone is left isolated and they need to survive, one of the first things you observe is that the silence becomes torturous and you want to break the silence. So people often start singing to themselves, whether it's real songs or they're just making stuff up. So I think that's what we're seeing here. And then it's always interesting to look at the song choice. And I think in general, the theme has been trying to reassure herself. I'm okay with this. It's the cat with everything, or the dog with everything burning behind him. Everything's fine.
This is fine.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm all right.
There you go. I'm all right. Her police car, she gets back to that. It dies. So she needs a new one. And this time she decides on a Rolls Royce, which I'll admit, the same way that one character in Peacemaker has bird blindness, like he gets attacked at him by an eagle. And he's like, we were attacked by some kind of duck. He just can't tell the difference between birds. I have that with cars. And so the third time I watched this episode, Alon was like, that's her older brother. He was like, you know what car that was, right? And I'm like, I have no idea. And he's like, dude, it's right there. It's a Rolls Royce. And it's a just married Rolls Royce. Drives off to a hot spring. It's getting hot in here.
It does seem like part of her enjoys the irony of the fact that the car's covered in balloons and all that.
I thought that was more why she chose it than the fact that it's this beautiful Rolls Royce. I think she finds it's similar to winning the lottery ticket. I think she's finding some humor in this as much as she can. I think it fits her sort of cynical and dry sense of humor. And the reason I started singing It's Getting Hot in Here, it wasn't just random. It's because she's singing that in the hot spring scene.
Yeah. And I won't make the joke, but you know the joke I was going to make about the hot spring scene.
I do. She heads to the Georgia O'Keeffe Museum. At the museum, she's looking at a few paintings. She spots a particular one that she actually has a reproduction of hanging on her wall at home, a Belladonna 1939. So she gets a fun idea. She takes the real painting and swaps it on her wall for the reproduction. So I think I see a few levels to what happens in this scene. Number one, the obvious is the humor of it. This is one of the fun things you would do in a last person on Earth scenario. Instead of hanging up reproductions, I'm going to go grab some real 100-year-old paintings and put them on my wall.
Kumba definitely has like the Mona Lisa, don't you think?
No, I don't think so. I think
he just has a bunch of those paintings of himself.
Yeah, he maybe has his own version of the Mona Lisa. Like he had somebody, the best painter in the world, which everyone in the hive is, put up a bunch of portraits of Kumba. We already saw evidence of that. Just to give you an idea, one of her paintings sold in 2014 for $44.4 million. It's a 1932 painting. So she is one of the most important painters of the last century. She was known as the mother of American modernism. I'll get back to that in a second, but in terms of what this scene meant to me, number one was, of course, the obvious humor. But number two, I also just think looking at artwork, to me, talks about the striving for human connection. When you take a fake painting, especially, and replace it with a real one, it's almost like upgrading and getting closer to the person who painted it by hand. You're replacing something fake with something real, which is also sort of an underlying theme in the show. Kumba is creating all these false scenarios surrounded by people, but that's kind of like a reproduction of the scenario, the same way she had a reproduction of the painting, and now she has the real thing.
Yeah, but ironically, I think in the world she now lives in, replacing the fake painting with the real painting is still ultimately a hollow, superficial gesture. It's not going to actually provide any real satisfaction. It's
Agreed.
A novelty.
And I think we see that at the end of the episode. The third level. So Georgia O'Keeffe, she often painted flowers very close up. She talked about how flowers are very small, so you never really get a close look at them, and she wanted to paint them at a very large size where you can actually see all the detail. Here's what she said. So I said to myself, I'll paint what I see, what the flower is to me, but I'll paint it big, and they will be surprised into taking time to look at it. I will make even busy New Yorkers take time to see what I see of flowers. Well, I made you take time to look at what I saw, and when you took time to really notice my flower, you hung all your own associations with flowers on my flower. You really was into these flowers. And you write about my flower, and I think and see as if I think and see what you think and see of the flower. Okay, let me explain what I'm trying to say here. The general interpretation of her work is that these flowers are sort of metaphors for the female
It's
form.
flowers all the way down.
Exactly. And she has consistently sort of denied that. Like, a lot of people look at the flowers and they see the female form. And this paragraph is just one example of her sort of denying, intentionally evoking that. So what she said is, if I think and see what you think and see of the flower, and I don't. I don't know, Adam, you could try to interpret that.
Didn't someone after our instant take, like in a review, I can't remember, or a YouTube comment, accuse us of not knowing what Georgia O'Keeffe was famous for painting, or like what the common perception was of the symbolism?
Right. I don't want to turn this every week into us getting defensive about the comments.
No, I'm not getting defensive. I'm getting offensive.
Okay.
Which is, you think we're that stupid?
That's not what she said. Don't put words in her mouth. She was simply offering that there were a female voice on the show, they may have noticed this.
But I did notice it.
Yeah, I know. You just didn't bring it up on the instant take because it wasn't one of your instant reactions. So
and
now
I didn't want to make you uncomfortable.
We're bringing it up. You know, why don't I just take myself off the screen? You could carry it on from here. I'll get back on when we get past this scene. All right, everybody understands what I'm saying? Okay? Yeah. All right, let's move on to the next scene. We'll come back to this. Don't worry.
Well, yeah.
She's going to look at this painting a lot later, so there will be more room for discussion.
Okay. I mean, I'll say this. I don't want to make a joke out of it because it is a significant. It is symbolically significant for multiple reasons, as you discussed.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. She decides she's dining out tonight. Calls Howard with some requests. She wants to eat where her and Helen had their anniversary. Doesn't even tell them where. She says, "You know where that is." And then she goes to that fancy restaurant later, gets all dressed up, and there's all her favorite dishes. Martha's Vineyard, 1999. Helen's birthday, 2008. The things they ate on those occasions.
Yeah, which you can see her get potentially progressively less excited and more, I don't know, trying to kind of fake it to herself that she's interested in this meal. For me, the big change was when you get to those two little like cream puff things, because it's obvious that it's like one for her and one for Helen.
Yeah, I think what's funny though, there's also a specific moment you hear wolves howling in the background, or you hear animals. Literally at that moment, the expression fades from her face. And that's when she gets up to go put a song on the piano. And she chooses a rendition of "I Will Survive." It's played piano only, and it has a sort of melancholy tune to it. And that's partly why the wolves became almost a metaphor to me for her isolation. It's a reminder that there's no humans around, no people around. And so when they peek their heads in here, but I think you're right. I mean, when she sees these two, it's clearly meant for two. So you can pile that on to all the things that are poking a hole in the veneer and basically saying you can try to have fun, but at the end of the day, nothing is going to replace real human companionship.
Yeah.
And then the part that the biggest gut punch in the episode for me so far, and then there'll be more later, but when the camera slowly starts to pan out while she's sitting at the table, and it just so communicates, again, her loneliness and just how frivolous this all feels, that it tastes good, sure, but that's all it is. The experience is not a positive one. Now, well, I don't want this to turn into, is this a good episode or a bad episode every week? And then inevitably it turns into, yes, it was slow, but here's why we still liked it. Because there is a large contingent on the internet. Actually, I don't know how big a contingent it is, because this is officially the most watched show on Apple TV, which is awesome. And it means if Vince Gilligan has more story to tell beyond season 2, perhaps we'll get to see that story. But I was trying to sit back and just reflect on what did I enjoy about these first 15 minutes? Because that is definitely a lot longer than you would typically spend with a singular character. And we talked about on the instant take, there's not much quote unquote information communicated here. Carol is alone, trying to entertain herself, but ultimately doesn't satisfy her. That's the information we get. What's the point of stretching that out to 15 or 16 minutes? And I would say, if you're only watching the show to gain information, satisfy your curiosity, what is the next step in the humans versus hive battle? How is the hive progressing in their goals? Again, you gain nothing in this segment and you're not going to enjoy it. You're going to be bored out of your skull. But if I think back and reflect on my own experience with it, what am I engaging with while I'm watching? And I would say for these 15 minutes, the things I'm feeling because I'm invested in the character of Carol, I'm feeling moments of happiness when she gets little moments of joy. Yes, there are cracks in the facade, but I think she enjoyed going to the hot spring. I think she enjoyed golf. This is the first time we've really seen her content because, yes, I think she was in a better mood when she was working on stopping the hive, got out her whiteboard. That was a positive move, but it's like we've seen either total misery of just, I give up, I'm going to veg out, I'm mourning the loss of Helen. That's like one end. And the other end is I'm going to roll up my sleeves and get something done. We haven't seen the middle of just being content and enjoying life a little bit. So
it's like engaging in frivolous behavior, but not in a low energy, obviously self-destructive way.
Yeah, not vegging on the couch. She's outside. So I'm feeling happy for her. But there's also tension because I'm starting to feel worried for her that I don't think this is going to last, and I'm waiting for the other shoe to drop. I'm feeling worried for humanity because if she gives up, then who's going to be our savior? Manusos. There's some humor, her taking the painting, her singing to herself, just seeing what her different song choices are going to be is fun. And just getting to know her. What is she going to do if given unlimited downtime and essentially any resources she wants? So that is what I'm experiencing in those 15 minutes. But I think the most important thing, this is an investment in what comes later in the episode, because we're going to see a major shift where she, if you don't believe she's putting on an act, and we'll get to that, if you buy what we see, which I do, then you have to believe that she's going to go to the hive and ask for them to come back, that she's going to accept Zosha, which is a major change in her character, to see her essentially give up, to see her miserable. You can't just jump to that. We need to spend enough time, feel a little bit of what she's feeling, potentially feel a little bit bored, so we understand why she's feeling so bored. And hey, we only have to do it for about 20 minutes if you take the beginning and then a little bit of the third act. She has to do it for about 36 days. So I wasn't bored. This is an investment in something greater. And the last thing I'll say is that, of course, this is all subjective. If this went on for 30 minutes, would that have been too much for me? If it was only 7 minutes, maybe I would have gotten enough out of it and then you would have had room for other stuff in the episode. I don't know. It's obviously more art than science, but at least at 15 minutes, it really worked for me. I thought that was worth reflecting on.
These are the kinds of choices that make Vince Gilligan's shows unique and feel special.
Yeah. And I think if I try to break down like what's special, one of the major things that stands out to me is that this show and Better Call Saul and Breaking Bad, sometimes they feel hyper real, but they feel very grounded, especially when compared to other stuff I watch. And part of it really is just taking its time. Sometimes in life, things take time, and you can convey that through montage and other means. But when you've got 10 episodes to work with, you can also convey the passage of time by observing the passage of time. And I think sometimes that is more effective. This reminds me of, we can move on from this in a second, but it reminds me of Better Call Saul, Adam. I remember discovering very late in the game that there were a contingent of people who would watch the show only for the cartel storyline. They just wanted to know, how do we get from point A to point B, point Better Call Saul to point Breaking Bad. And of course, I enjoy all that stuff too, but there were some people that were bored by the Jimmy and Kim scenes. They would complain if an episode was Jimmy and Kim heavy. They would sometimes fast forward. I just want to see Gus and Mike and see what happens there.
Meanwhile, you had us on Saulcast. We could spend 5 minutes analyzing the symbolism of the fish in the fish tank in Jimmy's apartment.
We came back to that fish so many times.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and I don't disparage anybody. Not every show is for everybody. That's totally fine. But that's why I present it as, here's what I experienced watching it. So if you hate it and you're curious why people like it, that's just a window into how some of us experience the show. Cut to Manusos, or as I call it, the good part of the episode. Just kidding. We see him siphoning gas, or on his way to...
I've always wanted a reason to do that.
Have you ever done the thing where you have to start the siphoning I guess, no, you haven't, where you suck it into your mouth and have to spit it out.
But I will say, in theory, it's not actually necessary for the gasoline to enter your mouth. I think it's just hard to prevent.
I'm surprised the Hive doesn't mention that to Manusos. One more thing, Manusos. This is just, take it or leave it, some advice.
That gasoline is not unleaded.
So he's on his way to siphon some gas while practicing English. The cat is gray. So we saw him pack some tapes when he was taking his go bag for this long journey. And now he's practicing English off those tapes. One of the Hive stops the truck by him and offers a lift.
There's something very annoying about the idea of someone driving at walking speed, talking to you out of the driver's seat, like trying to give you advice, even if he's not part of the hive mind.
Yeah, it's like, I'm trying to walk. I obviously don't want to talk to you.
Yeah.
Would you leave me alone and stop telling me to drink water? Yeah, a member of the Hive is in a truck driving by Manusos and stops to offer some water, offer a lift, offer help of any kind. If you need anything, just wave at the sky. Manusos ignores him while keeping one hand on his machete in case he needs to use it. And it's just hilarious to watch the contrast between his super cheery attitude and Manusos just totally stone-faced. Not just ignoring him, but actively attempting to make it clear that he's ignoring him.
Yeah.
And then eventually the guy just kind of smiles, waves, and drives off. Manusos siphons some gas from a truck he finds, leaves money on the windshield. He will not steal anything. When he needs to take something, he'll leave some money there. We learned this about him in the first episode where we met him, when he opened up all of his customers' storage units, and he left a note saying, "Apologies for management, you will be compensated," etc. Continues to practice English.
Can I say, I have some doubts over whether this is really happening in South America or Central America, because the screen isn't tinted yellow.
Yeah, they've left behind. It's funny you say that. You know what? I think they didn't have enough yellow left over for the tint. Because, okay, he's practicing
used
English.
it all.
Yeah, he's practicing English. The dog is yellow.
Yeah.
He drives a yellow car. He has a yellow bandana that he wears around his neck. The show has a very yellow theme, right? All the posters.
Yeah.
The tape that he's learning English from is yellow. Carol wears that yellow jacket in the first couple of episodes.
Yep.
Yellow is a color we associate with smiley faces.
Sure.
And it's interesting to think about, are people actually smiling, or is this a case of shiny, happy people where it's done more ironically, which is a song by REM, who also did the song "It's the End of the World" and You Know It, and I Feel Fine, or whatever the name was. So there you go.
For years, I've been paying attention to all the colors, all the references to color in Breaking Bad, Better Call Saul, and now Pluribus. And I can never quite figure out exactly what the meaning is. I don't know that there is a precise meaning behind any use of color, so much as it's an interesting pattern to use for writing. and it's thought provoking, and the meaning can kind of fluctuate from situation to situation. Either way, I don't know quite what to make of it in every case, but I really do enjoy it.
Don't worry, I'll do a video essay on it coming soon.
Really?
No, probably not.
Yeah. It's too complicated.
Minusos gets back to his car. Won't start right away, as is the way with his car. We see, and then he does get it started. We see hanging on his rearview mirror, sort of a mini prayer book or a mini prayer card depicting the Virgin Mary holding infant Jesus.
Yeah, there's a term for that thing. I forgot what it is.
Nice, someone in the chat help us out.
And apparently, you're not really meant to hang it like from a mirror or something. Like I think specifically, you're supposed to like wear it like a necklace or something.
Okay. Obviously, I know very little about that. So all I took from it is this is an indication that he's devout. We'll see more indications in the episode. And I think it goes some way in explaining his hard principles and why he will not deviate from them, even when it means potentially bringing harm to himself or taking the much harder path when there's an easier one before him, which is another thing I really admire.
Vince Gilligan has such a thing for crappy cars, and it's funny to see Carol driving around with the Rolls Royce, and then the contrast between that and this car, whose name I will not say, because
I had the same dilemma.
I never heard of it, but it's clearly kind of a crappy car. At least this specific car is, because it keeps breaking down.
And
it does look cool,
the hive will make an indication later. We know the car is important to you. Yeah. So it sounds like it's got some sentimental value. And you just brought up a good point. You compare this to the Rolls Royce Carol is driving. There's a lot of that. It's
not a rosary, just for the record.
The thing that he has hanging off his rearview mirror. In terms of just having access to material things, him and Carol are obviously in very different positions. And that gets more extreme as the episode goes on. We'll talk about that.
Well, he doesn't know. I guess he's starting to learn he can ask for whatever he wants, but that would, and I don't know that he necessarily sees it as this way in a literal sense, but on an emotional level, that to make a request of the hive would feel like making a deal with the devil.
Oh, yeah, I'm certain that he sees it that way. I mean, I've seen some people who take it a lot further and see it as very literal, that he believes they're demons, and I wouldn't take it there. But at least on a metaphorical level, I think he would see it as sinful, or at minimum, he would see it as wrong and against his principles to take anything from them. I mean, he says that very explicitly shortly. Cue one of my favorite montages ever from the Gilliverse. This is the one I rewatched on the treadmill. You get some beautiful vistas as Minusos drives and continues to practice English. But now, as he practices these phrases, they are basically on the same level as the music of the montage. You're not hearing it diegetically. It kind of becomes part of the music almost. Monday is today. Tuesday is tomorrow. He drives by some pluribs who are all cheerfully saying hello. He ignores them. You see him checking the map, drawing on it to keep track of where he is, and that will become our Indiana Jones style "where are we on the map" thing. We see him taking more gas, leaving more money. And then one of my favorite parts of his English practice, you get a great shot of the mountains and the water, and you hear him say, "The world is big, big, the world is big." And something about how it all comes together. Because he's learning a new language, he's obviously not speaking with a lot of confidence. He's speaking with an almost questioning tone. Am I saying this right? When you have the melancholy music behind it, and he's saying those words, "the world is big," it has this feeling of discovery, like I am discovering the vastness of the world. And he's not afraid of it, but there's obviously a touch of sadness to it. And it's more of, it's similar to Carol's fireworks, and then she's just there by herself.
Yeah.
And now it's him journeying out there. Huge world, and he's by himself. And he's literally trying to save the world.
It's huge, and it's now effectively empty.
Yeah.
Um,
And you feel all that thanks to the music, the visual, and just the interesting, surreal clashing of his English practice, those just bizarre phrases over the music.
it's interesting. It's cool to see how the hive manifests in different parts of the world. So here, um, because this is an environment we're less familiar with, like to him, this is probably not unusual, to see
Closer
like,
to home.
yeah. Whereas for us, like it does in some ways, it just looks like a busy like town center. But then you look at it and it's like, well, everyone's smiling. They're all like cooperating, and it is. They have no reason to speak to each other or anything.
Yeah.
It's interesting seeing like this flavor of the hive in this
Yeah,
area, and then go ahead.
No, keep going.
Yeah, this is a little different topic.
I was just gonna say it's been a while since we've gotten a glimpse of the hive on their own somewhere. It's always nice to get a reminder that this is a global phenomenon, and the show feels so much bigger than Better Call Saul or Breaking Bad, where they were always set. Like remember in Breaking Bad where there was one episode that opens in Germany? I think Better Call Saul did that too, and it's just like, whoa, it's so bizarre. And this show's kind of done it not super frequently, but often enough that it you never lose the sense that this is global.
Not only that, but in one of these scenes, when you see Manusos just pulling over to look at his map, he's out of focus and in the background, and in focus in the front are these what appear to be like ancient geoglyphs, like some kind of rock carvings. They look similar to what you'd expect when you think of a cave painting. It's like stick figures with bows and arrows. You see a snake and some kind of animals that they're hunting. For all I know, those are actual real ones. My understanding is that in this part of the world, things like this are pretty commonplace. And it's kind of interesting because when you think about this is an ancient part of human history, and somehow all of human history has led to this, which is, probably the most significant event in human history, which is when pretty much every individual mind got taken over by an alien.
Yeah. And Manusos is about to have to embody what we see in these images. He's about to become a hunter. We're going to see him fishing. He's going to have very little in the way of modern conveniences with him. Mm-hmm. Now, it
kind of reminds me of an what was that terrible movie? Prometheus. Where they find a lot of they find like the ancient star map or indicators of their like extraterrestrial origins inside an ancient cave.
Yeah.
I find that the mix of the super old, like stuff that potentially predates language with the modern science fiction stuff, that's such a cool combination.
Oh, yeah. It's part of why I have a soft spot for that movie. There's so many things that are atrocious about it, but it takes some of my favorite ideas and filters them through Ridley Scott's like visual expertise. So there's still something of value in it to me. But the story itself has so many issues.
Yeah.
So I was just going to go back for a second to all these phrases he's saying as he's learning English. The girl saves the mouse from the trap is an example. And I see, again, a lot of people will try to decipher the words precisely. What are the symbols here? The girl saves the mouse. Is that Carol saving the world, etc.? To me personally, I don't really see specific allegory here. It's more just part of painting a mood. When he says things like today is Tuesday, Monday is tomorrow, it makes me feel the passage of time. When he says, today, I am not going to the library. Tomorrow, yes, I will go to the library. Similarly, later, he says, whose coat is it? To whom does the coat belong? Part of that just says these are modern things of going to the library or just things you do in day-to-day life that no longer have meaning in this world, the way the world is currently. So it's almost like mourning. It's a grief for the world that's disappeared just by looking at the minor things that we used to do. And then just on top of what the words communicate in terms of mood, there's also just action. You see Manusso's battling the elements. He's in the rain. He's battling thirst, battling the temptation to give in when he's so lonely and all these people are saying hello, offering him anything he could need. So it's great to watch him just stone-faced, staying strong. But on top of that, you also see this proactive thing, him learning a new language, which is not an easy thing to do. So just in terms of going back to what you opened the podcast
I mean,
with.
it's hard enough to like do Duolingo when you're comfortable in bed.
Yeah. And now he's doing it in a rainstorm where he's collecting rain so he doesn't die of thirst.
Yeah.
I love Manussos. This is what I'm trying to get back to. And just him learning a new language is one more thing you can throw on the pile for how focused he is. And I love it. Oh, and one thing we love in a Vince Gilligan montage is process. And that's what we're seeing here. The repetition of these phrases, they get more confident and accurate each time. We're listening to him learn the language. And it's satisfying. So there's so many reasons why I love this montage.
Not just that, but you also see, okay, it's not just a montage of forward progression and driving. It's like, oh yeah, this is how he collects water. You know?
Yeah, you're getting answers to the mechanics of all this. How does he do it? We're going to see him catching fish as well. Oh, we see him sleep one night in a church, by the way. So that's another indication. And again, I saw theories where it's like, well, he thinks they're demons and he believes they can't cross the threshold of the church. And I'm like, it goes a little far.
Here's the way I took it, which is, I'm the last person you would come to for expertise on this subject, and I will be the first person to admit it. But I do think, and again, I don't know too much about this, but I think there are a lot of churches where, like part of their policy is that like if you need a place to stay, like you're welcome.
You burst through the front doors, sanctuary.
Yeah.
Everything I know about churches, I learned from The Simpsons.
Yeah. So like, if there's a church here, there's probably like houses and stuff too. But he chooses to stay in the church because I think he sees that as more ethical.
That's a good point. Initially,
that's how I saw it.
I thought it gives him comfort, but I think you're right. I mean, we've seen everything else he does. It's him trying to avoid taking from somebody. So I think you're right about that.
Yeah. I think he just has very strong values. And I think he believes that the church would be okay with him doing this. Whereas the owners of those houses wouldn't necessarily want a stranger breaking in.
Yeah. I think you're 100% right. Great observation.
What do you think has become of religious organizations in this new world? I mean, I have to imagine they just overnight disappeared.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I think everything disappeared overnight. Anything that is not essential to physically maintaining the earth, I think is gone.
Then why was that dude still wearing bike shorts? Like, do you think he's still going cycling?
I mean, what's
just
the point
for exercise?
Why bother wasting a second changing clothes? I think
hygiene.
How frequently do you really need to change clothes for hygiene? We do it every day.
He didn't look dirty though, and they're doing a lot of physical work.
Well, that's my interpretation.
They're dealing with human remains.
That's true. Well, I think those people. I think they're only going to change their clothing when absolutely necessary, because when there's no Carol around and no old schoolers, they are trying to be as efficiently as humanly possible. So they will only change clothes at the second it makes sense and not a second sooner. Must be fun to figure all this out in the writer's room. They're debating how long would it be before that guy takes his bike shorts off.
Yeah. What's going on under there? Look how cool this church is.
Yeah. I mean, there's so many great shots in this whole montage. It's just visually so stimulating to look at. We see Manussos driving through the city, checking the map at night, see him fishing, and he approaches the Darien Gap. He sees...
Well, wait. I want to focus for a second on the phrase, some of the phrases he is repeating as part of his English
practice.
To whom do the coats belong? the coats belong to them. It does feel like the show is like trying to remind us of the hive. It's like, oh yeah, they took everything.
That's true. When they use words like them, the first thing it's going to make you think of in this context is the hive.
Right, because this is an ambiguous them. There's no one specific that it's referring to. So of course our mind is going to fill in the blank and just be reminded of the hive.
They're taking all the coats. Even just seeing him groom himself, like cutting his hair. Yeah, seeing the whole process. I love it. He's driving through the city. So like I said, he's approaching the Gap, which is basically a stretch of land that you have to cross to get from South America to North America if you're going to go by land. But there's no roads. There's a lot of dangerous things. And as he approaches it, he sees a lot of people's belongings on the ground. And I'll just read off. So as he's standing there, some of the Pluribus come out of the wilderness and they speak to him. Menusos, please don't do this. The Darien is too dangerous. It's over 100 kilometers to Panama, and there are no marked trails. The forecast for this week is not conducive to hiking. It's going to be over 38 degrees with 98% humidity. And my favorite part, we don't mean to harp on hydration, but clean water is not going to be easy to come by. You see the self-awareness.
Look how they all just like literally come out of the woodwork.
Yeah, I love how Vince Gilligan and the team here are borrowing from sort of traditional horror imagery. Like the creepy thing of a bunch of people just calmly stroll out into view. You didn't know they were there. But of course, there's such a twist on it. You've never seen it done this way. We don't mean to harp on hydration. Clean water is not easy to come by. The tropical forest hosts a remarkable diversity of snakes, spiders, and insects, and many are quite venomous.
The way they speak, it doesn't matter like what the point of what they're saying is. They sound like a tour guide.
Well, I would actually say this time there was a touch of they sound earnestly concerned.
They sound afraid for him.
But you are right, though. They are always presenting so many facts in such an organized manner.
The spines can grow up to 20 centimeters long.
Yeah, that's what they get into next. That there are the chunga palms, which I love. This is another.
Those are Chekhov's chunga palms.
Exactly. This is how you build tension. They're actually listing all the dangers he's going to face. So when he starts his hike, you're waiting to actually see. Most of us, at least speaking for me personally, never heard of one of these palms. So I was waiting, and then it pops up right in his face. Talks about how if you get cut on one of those with all the bacteria, you could have a fatal infection. Look around you. All these items were left by people who could carry them no farther. And that's all the stuff you saw on the ground. Yeah, a great little detail. And they offer, we can take you anywhere you want to go. How about New Mexico? Isn't that where you're going to visit Carol Sturka? We could get you there by nightfall. We can even transport your car. We know how much it means to you. And then the greatest line.
Now, why does it mean a lot to him? Is it now? This is a person who has a lot of respect, I think, I would imagine, for hard work and earning a living, not taking the unearned. So I don't know. Maybe it's like something he saved up for.
Either saved up for, or it's a car he worked on it with his dad,
or has sentimental value of some kind.
Yeah, I fill in the blanks with the things I've seen in movies, the things I've seen in real life. Like I know people who have worked on cars, and it's something they work on for years, and it becomes such a prized possession.
It becomes like a podcast.
Explain.
Because it means so much to him.
I guess in my life, the thing that means as much to me as that car does to him would be this podcast.
That's why we're going to burn it to the ground just to prove a point.
Yes, I fill in the blanks. Not only do these things become a prized possession for whoever works on them with their own hands, but if you worked on it with somebody else, then it also becomes a representation of that relationship, somebody very important in your life. So, of course, we don't know any of that, but those are all the blanks I fill in when I hear that line. The best line in any Vince Gilligan show ever, maybe? Menusos turns to them. Nothing on this planet is yours. Nothing. You cannot give me anything because all that you have is stolen. You don't belong here. And as he says that, he's dousing the car in gasoline and then lights it on fire. Which, how did you interpret that, Adam? Why is he doing that?
Does it need interpretation?
To screw you, right? You can't have this car.
I don't think the Hive wanted his car.
No, but they're taking everything, and they're offering to transport
yeah.
it.
Like this is one thing. This is one thing that this thing is so much my own that I would sooner burn it than leave it behind. Well, no, I don't think it has to do with like if I leave it behind, they're gonna take it. I think it's just
It's a symbolic gesture.
You know that I care about this car, and yet you know what I really care about is defeating you.
Yeah.
And so I'm going to burn this thing to the ground just to, and I don't need it I don't need it anyway. And I'm telling you also, I'm not turning back. There's no chance in hell I'm turning back. So I'm never going to need this car again.
Exactly. I think it's a screw you on so many levels.
Yeah.
I agree. Frothy Philosophy adds one here. It's, you don't know as much about me as you think you do. That's another level of, oh, you think the car is so important to me. Okay, I'm going to burn it. And
and if he's, it sounds like he must have been the type to have kept to himself a little bit even before all this, because it does seem like the hive mind keeps misreading him. And remember when his mom is being all nice to him?
Yeah.
And he's like, "You're not my mom."
Yep.
My mother was a
Beep.
yeah.
Yeah.
That was a great line.
It was, he gets all the best lines, at least so far. When he lights the car on fire, we also get a couple of close-up shots. One of the little prayer thing burning, the tapes burning, which I just saw as more of, I don't need any of these belongings. All I need are my beliefs, chief among them right now, that I can go and save the world and that this situation is not right. I don't need these possessions.
Oh, I remember. I Googled it, and the thing hanging in his mirror is called a scapular.
A scapular, okay.
Which is what I was told and forgot, but that's what it is.
All right. David McNair, by the way, in the chat says that burning the boats, a practice from the Vikings when they would arrive on foreign land. We will win or die. Oh, badass. All right.
It kind of reminds me also of Breaking Bad, when he made his way to New Hampshire and the state motto of New Hampshire became the title of an episode: live free or die.
He enters the gap, and now he begins a new phrase, a mantra of sorts, sort of preparing for what he's going to say to Carol when he meets her. My name is Manusos Oviedo. I am not one of them. I wish to save the world. He says it over and over throughout this montage as we see him journeying through the gap. It's a way of practicing the phrase, of course, but I think it's also a mantra to keep him going, remind him why he's doing this. It's sort of a battle cry. And what's crazy for us is knowing what's waiting for him on the other side of this. That Carol is not in the mode she was in a couple of episodes ago. And so there's a sadness to this whole... every montage is a complicated swirl of feelings. For me, this one is primarily he keeps going and he won't let anything stop him. But there is that underlying sadness of, I believe that ultimately him and Carol will team up and it'll be a powerful alliance. But I think at least at first it's going to be a little bit messy and they're not on the same page right now. He's a lot more ready to take on the hive than she is.
Relevant to this notion that he's the one who's going to really spearhead taking on the hive is, did you notice his license plate?
Oh, it's Fritz or something, right?
L. Fritz.
Mm-hmm.
I had to Google that. But it sounds like what it means is what is it? It's like basically the thing that ruins everything. Or wait, hold on. I got that way wrong. Well, he's going to ruin everything for the hive is kind of what I was thinking.
Yeah.
But it means like leadership, some kind of like peace bringer or peaceful ruler.
Mhm.
So I don't know. There's a few other possible meanings of it also, but there's none of these choices are. I mean, I don't think this is an arbitrary choice.
D, all of the above.
Yeah.
It's all wrapped up in one Minuso's ball.
Or I guess, yeah, so the reason I said when he's going to like ruin everything is because when something's on the fritz, it's not working.
Right. I read, when you said that, I read it as he's going to come in and shake the box of the
Yeah.
current status quo
Yeah.
in a positive way. So we see a montage, day, night, day, night. If you assume that we see every day of his journey, then he's out here for approximately 5 days. And what finally gets him is one of those spiky plants, the chunga palm. And basically, he slips on a rock, falls backwards, tries to catch himself, but lands with his back on those sharp things. And then pulls himself off it and screams. And then that night, he heats up his machete and uses it to cauterize the wounds.
I thought he was just really itchy.
Yeah. I don't recommend using a machete for that. But
This was a crazy scene. Look at his face. Look at the acting.
And it has the buildup because you see the leather between his teeth.
Yeah.
And then you know, oh, he's about to do something really painful. And I'm a sucker for all the self-surgery scenes. You see John Wick in a bathtub or something with a mirror, trying to do his own stitches.
Daniel brought this up in the instant take, but you love 127 hours.
Like yes,
the guy's cutting his own arm off.
I did have an odd obsession with that movie. I thought I was the only one, but I found someone on Reddit who has seen it about 3,000 times or something, and reached out to Danny Boyle and got him to sign a poster or something. And I felt less like an outsider when I heard that. Yeah, I love these kinds of scenes. And this show uses music, I wouldn't say sparingly, especially this episode, but it uses it very deliberately. It's not like there's score all the time. There's a lot of silences. So when music cuts in, it really gets your attention. And here there is a dark, foreboding score that really underscores it. And you feel his pain. The
music in this show has been hold on. I'm trying to get it to stop playing. Okay. The video is playing, which is dangerous. The music in this show in general has been incredible.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, even the choice of the like piano rendition of I forgot the actual
I Will Survive.
I Will Survive. I was going to say Survivor, but like every choice just fits perfectly. And even when it doesn't necessarily match the whole tone of the show, because there have been a couple times now where we've said that the underlying score or sound effects used almost start to feel like you're watching like a cheesy horror movie or like an episode of the X-Files or something. I'm glad when they do it. Like it just hits the right, it triggers all the right emotions.
Yeah, it reminds me of Half-Life 2. One of like 3 games I've actually beat and played all the way through in my life. Yeah. But one thing I remember from that game, this is probably when I first learned this lesson, the game doesn't have a ton of music in it. And then when music kicked in, you were like, oh no, okay, something crazy's happening.
I know the exact moment you're talking about.
Yeah. And that's what taught me the power of contrast. That's why you're not turned up to 11 all the time. That's why you need the quiet. So that way when something comes in, it catches your attention and makes you feel something. The metaphor I always use is that when you're in a car, once you accelerate and you get to a certain speed, you don't really feel the car moving. You feel the acceleration and you feel the deceleration. So it's the same thing with emotions. If there's music all the time, eventually you don't really feel anything unless there's drastic changes in it. Yeah, it's the contrast. Half-Life 2 taught me that. And hopefully Half-Life 3 will teach me that soon. We'll see. Been saying that for about 20 years.
Hoping against hope.
The next day, the mantra is back. He's continuing to say, my name is Minusos Oviedo.
Yeah.
It doesn't have quite the same poof to it.
No,
he's trying.
now it's like this. It feels less like he's choosing to say this, and more like this is all he can say. This is all he has left in him.
Yeah, and each time
because this is all that's keeping him going is this mission. You know,
exactly. And we start to see his vision go blurry. He faints, and as he starts to pass out, he says, "Carol Sturka," says her name a couple of times, and then helicopter overhead. It arrives, someone starts to lower from it. Of course, the hive is not going to let him die. Rescue. Oh, by the way, one question that was brought up on the instant take is Daniel was surprised. Why isn't the hive kind of going ahead of him on the trail, clearing the way to keep
I
him
know
safe?
why. I thought about this. They can't harm vegetation.
Yeah, someone pointed that out in the comments, and I was like, of course. It's so easy to forget because it's such an absurd rule that we've never seen in fiction before. I'm sure it's been done somewhere, but I've never seen it. So it's so easy to forget. Hey, they can't mow the lawn. They can't cut a tree. And actually, when filming this, they couldn't cut trees. They were on location, but they had to put fake plants in there for him to be able to cut them.
They were in such a rush to spread the disease. And yet they could never sustain the whole population.
No, yeah, I mean, there's so
they
many
literally can't help it.
Yeah, there are so many questions about, is this a screw up by an extraterrestrial race that put this virus together and just didn't think through the consequences of the rules?
I think this is one of the reasons why it keeps getting broadcast. I'm guessing that the broadcast that brought it to Earth was not the first time it had beamed from one part of the galaxy to another.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe that's the last resort. Is like, okay, the hive is it's sort of like resonance. Like if you know how like if you can sing at a high-pitched voice and you'll get the glass near you to start vibrating.
Mm-hmm.
And then it's like they're just trying to get they're trying to get another instance of another process of the hive to start again because this one's dying out.
Mm-hmm.
And it just manifests again and again. It could have been going on for millions of years. Gil is... I think we need the whole hospital to come out and help you right now. Please, Gil.
I normally don't do a lot of editing when we repost this. I might cut that part out.
The part where you choked.
Yeah, I don't know why it happens so many anytime you or Dale say something shocking, I want to spit my water out, and then I remember that's going to electrocute me with all this equipment. So instead I choke. So to pick up what you were saying, we've brought up, and a lot of people have brought up the theory that the hive right now is working on another satellite to continue transmitting this message.
I don't know that it needs to yet.
Maybe it doesn't need to yet, but that's their eventual goal.
Yeah. Well, I don't even know if it's the eventual goal so much as it's potentially almost an act of desperation once the population collapses. Like it probably does a calculation and says, okay, it will take this long to get to send the message into enough directions in the galaxy that statistically speaking, it will probably get picked up and recreated somewhere. We don't need. There's a certain point at which we have to address it before the collapse.
Right. So let's say if it's inevitable that eventually they will build a satellite to continue transmitting the message. We're all going to die out in order to propagate the virus. Our only hope is to beam this message and hope it gets picked up on another planet. If we assume that, if you follow that theory further, that would suggest that Earth probably isn't the first link in this chain. Wherever it started, it might have ended up on one planet, it gets transmitted again, ends up on another, et cetera, et cetera.
And
eventually
I think it's cool to think that by the time it's getting beamed to outer space, it's almost like a death knell.
Because it's the last thing they did before they all died out because they have no way of sustaining themselves.
Yeah. I mean, maybe, and by last thing they did, it could be on a scale of like, I guess they said they only have like 10 years.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which, to be clear, they didn't say they're all going to die in 10 years. They said most of them. But you assume if you carry that out, eventually they're all going to
I
go.
don't think it's capable of prioritizing some over others.
I don't even know if it matters to do that, other than you're losing storage space in a way.
Yeah, like it didn't seem sad about like John Cena didn't seem sad about the fact that they were going to run out of food.
Yeah. My only point though is that 10 years might not be a hard deadline if like a few of them are still alive. You just need enough people to get the satellite built.
In a way, it's basically assuming it does keep hopping from life from one planet to another, and specifically planets that have sentient life. If it keeps hopping from one to another, it's basically a mechanism of euthanizing sentient life in the most quote unquote humane way possible, which is, okay, we make everyone really, really happy and produce world peace for a really short amount of time before everyone dies.
Right. And then it moves on to the next planet.
Yeah. And it's just like a genocide of sentient life from one part to the next. And yet it's one that's like coated in this veneer of happiness.
And by the way, if that's the case, then it would seem very unlikely they could successfully stop it. Because the fact that it got to Earth, if you assume Earth is not the first instance and it's one in a long chain, then it would seem like no one else has been able to stop it. So they're up against a challenging force, I'd say.
So Carol's not just saving the Earth. Maybe she's saving the galaxy.
Countless civilizations.
She's Luke Skywalker.
In a sense, yeah.
Ray Palpatine.
That's right.
Skywalker.
Okay. A helicopter arrives. Rescue from Anusos. There was an ambiguous wave. I will say, upon watching it 3 or 4 times, to me, it does not look like he's waving at them. It looks like he's just blocking this bright light out of his eyes because he's looking up. But I'd also say...
they do show the sun is right there.
Exactly. I will say, I also don't know how much it matters. You could read into it, okay, if he's waving, that's him accepting the help.
Yeah.
But the way I look at it, they're already lowering down. I think based on the metaphor they used earlier in the season when they asked Carol, if you saw someone drowning, whether or not they asked for you to save them, of course you would save them. So I think he's crossed into the threshold where whether he wants their help or not, they're going to save his life right now. And as they're lowering, he then raises his hand. And even if it was intentional, I would say he's delirious on the verge of passing out. So it's just really hard for me to read into this. He's accepted their help or he hasn't. Either way, though, I think this will shake him because he will get their help whether he wants it or not. He will get to live, but I think it will come at a cost for him feeling like he violated these principles and got helped from the devil, got help from the bad guys.
Yeah, I mean, we might see, by the time he's better, we may see a reaction. If not explicitly saying this, it will seem like, maybe he will act or imply that he would have rather died than been saved by them.
Yeah, we may see that, if not in words, then in demeanor and attitude. By the way, first, I want to take a quick aside to thank Jim Watari, who continues to be an amazing human being. Last live stream, he gifted 5 One Take memberships, and he just did it again. So if you are the recipient of one of these memberships, thank Jim. And Jim, thank you from us here at One Take. Now, how long did this whole journey take for Manusos? We kind of tried to quickly figure it out on the instant take, but Omar in our Discord helped out. He did the math. And then I double checked it and adjusted a few things. But basically, we know that Manusos got Carol's tape on day 9. And it seemed like he left that night. To get where he went from Paraguay to the edge of the gap would be about 100 hours of driving. So if I use the assumption of 12 hours a day, I think going more than that is pretty aggressive. But if you assume 12 hours a day, that would say he gets to the gap roughly on day 18 from when the virus hit. And then we see about 5 days of hiking. And on the evening of day 5 of hiking, he cauterizes his wounds. Basically, if you bring it to the end, I believe he gets rescued approximately on day 24. So last we saw Carol was day 12, shooting off fireworks and everything. This would be about 12 days later, day 24. And then we cut to day 48. So another 24 days since his collapse, we rejoin Carol. And that's all important because if the question is, when is Manousos going to get to Carol? So one question is, how long does he need to be in recovery? And I think it's reasonable to assume it could be a matter of weeks, especially if he got an infection from the bacteria they warned him about. Is that fair, Adam?
Yeah, I think it's possible.
So the fact that we now go to day 48, it doesn't mean Manousos is about to show up at our door. It could still be a little bit of time. Like we talked about in the instant take, though, I do think he's going to want to get out of there as soon as possible. It's going to be that thing we've seen a million times where someone's getting medical attention. They rip all the wires out and they're like, John Wick, no, you can't. You can barely stand up right now. You can't go yet.
Yeah.
I'm thinking I'm going to leave this hospital.
Yeah.
Day 48, Carol struggling to entertain herself, playing golf on a roof, breaking windows in the building across the street. I found it funny. I feel like they are avoiding nature here because 48 days later, with no human, no one's mowing the lawns, no one's doing anything, there's going to be a lot of overgrowth. Maybe
I think that's why they showed the rabbit on the golf course eating some weeds.
Agreed. And that shows that there's some maintenance just by nature itself. But to the degree things would be affected by no human intervention, they don't have to show that this episode. We can wait till next episode. Maybe in terms of budgeting, that helps.
I'm not saying they showed the rabbit eating the weeds to explain why the golf course still looks good.
Well, I did see a debate about this on Reddit, and that's
really?
what someone pointed out. Yeah.
Oh, no. I just mean the golf course is overgrown such that it's attracting rabbits.
Yeah, well, and I'm taking it a step further. Vince Gilligan's thought of everything.
Yeah. Well, they're really going to wonder, why is the green still so well kept?
Can we get a rabbit in there?
Yeah.
She goes back home, and another one of my favorite scenes in the show so far. She's doing the fireworks again. You get the feeling these are probably nightly fireworks. The Stars and Stripes Forever, the same song she was humming herself back on day 12. Now we hear it as part of the score of the show. Fairly loud, too. I am a sucker for the overly joyous song in contrast to a person looking miserable. And I think this has that not just in the audio, but also in the visual, because now you also have the fireworks, which again is big, fantastical show meant for a lot of people, for families. And it's just her there looking miserable. One of the fireworks launchers kind of tilts over. So now it's pointing at her and she doesn't move. In fact, she seems to accept, maybe this is going to end it for me. She takes a deep breath, closes her eyes, and essentially prepares for it. When it shoots, it just barely misses her, whizzes past her head, and lights a house on fire. Not her house, a neighbor's house. To me, this was her rock bottom, and it explains what happens the next day. Some people will point out that when she turns her head to see the house on fire, they say, wait a minute, look at her eyes. When she turns around, she is looking at that drone that crashed into the lamp. That's her looking to say, they're watching me, right? Okay, now they think they want to end my life. This is going to keep
the drone is this show's pizza on the roof.
Yeah. I also saw, I don't know why, I was reading about this on Reddit a lot this week. I guess because I really enjoyed the episode and I want to just soak up more content on it. But one of the back and forths I saw, when someone brought up this theory that she's looking at the drone, someone was like, wow, I envy your ability to believe in infinitely lasting batteries in that drone. And then someone else was like, in a show about an extraterrestrial hive mind, you're worried about the batteries? And I'm like, I think Vince Gilligan is worried about the batteries. To me, that's the exact kind of detail he would worry about.
Then again, the drone has a battery powerful enough for it to fly, presumably for a few hours, and it's not flying. All it has to do is power some LEDs.
I also think that's true. So it could be in like standby mode. I think they're watching her from the sky. I mean, that's how.
Yeah. They got. I mean, they have the most advanced satellites in the world under their control.
Now there was at first I thought, well, that's kind of hypocritical of them, and they can't do that. But earlier in the season, when she was put off by the fact that they're watching her from a drone, Zosha was like, you know what, we'll send it away. That's fine. But I wouldn't consider it a lie if they've since brought it back or used some other means of watching her. And by the way,
they can justify it as self-defense.
Well, yeah, I don't know if it works that way. I don't believe they can lie, right? So if we tell her we're not going to watch you from the sky, I think they have to abide by that. I guess I don't know for sure. Yeah. But if they can do it like a loophole, that we've seen. We're not going to use Helen's memories of you, but we can use the waiter who served you in Helen a couple years ago to remember the meal you had. Which,
or
by
like
the way,
maybe one of the neighbors has like a Nest camera or something.
Yeah, any number of ways they can watch her while abiding by, we're not going to have that particular drone watching you that we sent away back in episode 2. A couple of things that brought to mind. One, the whole Helen thing and the grave robbing and stealing her memories. Carol actually allowed them to do that a couple of times this episode, or specifically once when she said, you know where we had our anniversary. I think she's a little more comfortable with that now, because she's been able to actually bury her body. She's been able to grieve. So I think she's a little less offended when they do that.
I agree that in part she's moving on a little bit. And she also, don't forget, and I don't mean to imply that you forgot, but we haven't talked about it during this take, which is she's coming off the heels of what initially felt like really good news, which is that she's safe from getting turned. Mm-hmm. And as soon as she found out that she was safe and she saw just the depravity of Kumba, I use that term as jokingly, but more to say, wow, I guess I'm really the only person who has a problem with this.
Right.
So why am I bothering to try to undo this? And at least I know I'm safe. That kind of dealt a blow to her sense of purpose because there was less of an element of self-preservation anymore. And I forget why.
I would say not just a blow to her sense of self-preservation, but also, or it takes away that purpose of I'm trying to preserve myself.
Yeah,
In addition to that, I think she still at the time wanted to save the world, but that's very hard to do if she no longer has access to the hive. Her gambit was to try and give one of them truth serum. That's impossible now. They're not going to let her get anywhere near them until she shows a change of heart. Yeah. So I think that was the kind of the secondary or possibly the primary blow of that whole situation.
Yeah.
By the way, when she closes her eyes and is waiting for the firework to the face, that is when the song gets especially jaunty and joyous. So again, just more of the contrast that I love. Also, in terms of watching, well, you know what? I'll save this little fun fact for later. She puts that fire out with a hose, and I think that's probably around when she decides to put her own fire out because she realizes she is a firework getting ready to explode in terms of potentially ending her life. So tomorrow she wakes up, goes to buy some paint, or not buy, go to grab some paint, and then paint something on the ground.
She's not Menusa. She doesn't. We don't see her leave money on the register.
Yeah, which we have talked about. Of course, Menusos and Carol share this one big thing in common. They wish to save the world, but we're starting to see where some of the friction might come in. For example, let's say they're working together and they need something. Carol might say, let's ask the hive for it. And Menusos would refuse to do that. So you can start to see where there might be some messiness and friction in their relationship. She draws something outside. We'll find out what in a moment. Then goes back inside. Stares at that Georgia O'Keeffe painting again. Now, if you accept the common interpretation that it evokes the female form, even if O'Keeffe herself denies that, sort of separate the artist from the art. Whatever we take from it is what we take from it. If that's what Carol sees in the painting, then the symbolism is clear, right? This is her missing human companionship. It's her missing Helen. And I would say, even putting aside what the painting represents, it's what I talked about earlier, just that general striving for human connection. Something you try to get from handcrafted art. But I think, like you said, Adam, earlier, in this context, even a painting drawn by hand, it's more real than a reproduction. It's not the same as having a human being there with you. And it just doesn't work. And there's another level where it might work of, okay, the reproduction of the art didn't work and the art itself didn't work. Real versus fake, it kind of didn't matter. So you know what? I'm gonna be a little bit like Kumba. I'm gonna ask for Zosha to come back.
Yeah,
and
I mean,
yeah.
If anything, what the art is just a reminder of what's missing in her life.
Yeah. And that's what she wrote on the cul-de-sac. Come back.
Yeah.
So as she's staring at the painting, we hear a car arrive, and it's Zosha. And Carol collapses, crying, grabs her, and hugs her. Which, if she's faking all this, she's a fantastic actress. Not just Ray Seahorn, but Carol Sturka. Unless it is a ruse, but she is also actually feeling very lonely. So she doesn't have to act. She can just let that loneliness out for a moment. So my personal opinion is she's not playing, 4D chess or anything.
Nah.
But this may work to her advantage once she decides to get back on board with the Stop the Hive plan.
Yeah. I mean, let's say she starts to... If she continues to develop a relationship with Zosha, which I know means developing a relationship with the Hive, that's risky because I think she's vulnerable to her sense of loneliness, and it would be hard. It would potentially be hard to focus on her mission of saving the world if she's actually starting to derive some real emotional benefit from this.
Yeah, and
but
I think
if she can do it, then that's a good way to keep your enemy close.
Yeah, exactly. And you see what's being set up here to be, I've said it a few times now, but a very complicated, messy situation. Because saving the world's going to be hard. And the more happy she gets from this budding relationship with Zosha, the harder it's going to be to commit herself to that cause. The less she'll be on the same page as Manousos. So, I mean, they took something we were really looking forward to. Manousos showing up on her doorstep. I'm still looking forward to it, but now I'm also a little bit worried. So it's very exciting for the future.
Now, I did read a slightly out there theory. Now, not only do we have Chekhov's Chungus plant, I forgot what it was called.
The spiky plant.
Chekhov's spike plant. But we also have Chekhov's Carol's eggs.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't subscribe to this theory, this specific theory, but some people on the internet were saying, they made such a point of showing Zosha's profile here. And no one is saying that Zosha is
rotund
or anything, but her posture does make her belly have like an outward curve to it just in this scene. And some people were saying like, well, what if they did some crazy genetics engineering stuff or like did turn Zosha into like a surrogate for Carol's fertilized eggs or something?
Yeah, I've heard the theory as well.
It would be, look, it's really not totally out of the question, but I don't think that this is how they would choose to like do the subtle reveal.
Mm-hmm.
I'm much more likely to think that it just happens to be the way she was standing.
Well, yeah, I subscribe more to that theory. I don't think there's anything to see here. That's not to say she's not pregnant. I don't think she is, but I don't think you can read it from this scene at all.
Especially like if it like depend. You can go frame by frame and find some frames where it doesn't look like that.
I mean, if I stand in a certain way, I look pregnant. You know, so
What do you mean if?
okay, yeah, it's like the time where I was worried about my weight, and Alon's like, "Don't worry, everyone looks big when they're sitting," and I was like, "I'm not sitting, I'm standing." One of the funniest things he ever said.
Yeah.
But what would have you seen the rest of this theory? Like, what would be the point of her being pregnant? Like, why would they do that?
I don't know.
Okay,
I mean, no, I mean, I have some ideas. So there's, well, first of all, okay, I'm going to answer this question not as what would be the point of Zosha being pregnant, because
Okay.
I reject that theory, but it is a pretty common one.
Mhm.
But the theory that I do, I wouldn't say this is a prediction so much as I'm like waiting to see if something happens with it, which is we know her eggs are stored somewhere, and we know that the hive specifically promised that they will not extract her stem cells.
From her body, they said.
Yeah, from her body. So we know they have some form of like isolated genetic material, but we don't know if it's enough. And then on the other hand, if she's storing her eggs, it means there's some intent there to potentially one day have a child. And you know, maybe the hive will think it's giving her what she wants, or it's another form of some kind of manipulation that it doesn't know is a manipulation.
Yeah. Well, we'll see. To me, the
Yeah.
frozen eggs feel like the ricin of this show, where it's a thing that's in the
people are going to be
background.
talking about it over and over again. And
Yeah, there's gonna be so many points with the ricin. They're gonna use the ricin, or like they're
Yeah.
gonna use her frozen eggs. Like, it's gonna come up at some point, maybe. And I'm not saying she's definitely not pregnant. It's very hard for me to see that theory.
Someone in the chat suggests that maybe Kumba will be the donor. Yeah, but I mean, that wouldn't that potentially increase the likelihood of having an immune child as well? I mean, if she's gonna procreate with Kumba, that's the way to do it, because it's she doesn't have to touch him.
Right. I see what you're saying. I really don't have any reaction to it.
I just thought it was funny.
I'm left speechless by the chat and by you with this.
In fact, frankly, you're disappointed.
Yeah. We're all stupider for having heard
right.
the Billy Madison thing.
All right, enough joking around. This is an important scene.
Okay. Yes. This is okay. All right, we're gonna get back on track here.
Yeah.
Okay. So we've now seen Carol and Manousos driven to a point where they are dependent on the hive. Him physically, because he'll die without their help, and her more from a mental, emotional, spiritual standpoint. She cannot be alone any longer. And in a way, this is a life or death scenario based on what we saw last night. It's messy. Going back to what you pointed out earlier in terms of the Rolls Royce versus his car, he burned all his possessions. He has very little left. But I would say he was, I don't know if I'd use the word happier, but he still had purpose. He still had fulfillment.
Yeah.
You touched on it already. She lost that. She lost the goal of self-preservation because she believes they will allow her to remain outside the hive, and has effectively given up on saving the world.
Yeah,
At least for
she
now.
has much less to push against now.
Exactly. So he could go on in the worst situation possible with no material possessions and unwillingness to request anything from the hive, while she can call and say, I want a Gatorade. She can have anything she wants. But I think he, in his mind, is in a better position than her because of that sense of purpose and fulfillment he's getting. So this is and that's what's driven her to this point of desperation. I think for me, the most exciting part is what we talked about already. I mean, exciting is a funny word to use for it. I'm looking forward to the drama of it, but the messiness now of she's given in to a certain extent, while he did too, but less willingly. And what's going to happen when they meet? Is he going to be judgmental? Is that going to be the first time we look at him and we're like, I like you, Manousos, but now you're being kind of mean to Carol, and that's upsetting to me. A lot of complexity is on the way. And yeah, I mean, my heart breaks for Carol here. And this is why I think you needed all the buildup and all the time. Because if you go back to episodes 1, 2, 3, through 6, the idea of her asking for Zosha without, what I believe, without any ulterior motive, just because she needs her, is heartbreaking. Because to me, it means she's broken. And we'll see. We'll see if I'm wrong about that, and this is a big ruse. But at least on an emotional level, on a visceral level, that's how the scene hit me. So it was very powerful.
If you think about it, if the hive had a human conscience, its conscience should be screaming at it that what it's doing is wrong. Because Carol lost her wife at what is it at this point, like a month and a half?
48 days. 48 days ago.
48 days ago, and she's not handling it well. But it has no problem basically just sending in a substitute lover, basically, or one that it thinks she will be attracted to, and allowing her to now get closer to this person.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
I mean, I think
it's pretty messed up.
I mean, I think the hive lies to itself. Like, effectively what they did is torture her. They put her in isolation, and they waited until she was so desperate that she, quote unquote, changed her heart.
Yeah.
But I think they lie to themselves. They don't say we're doing that. They just say we can't be near her for self-preservation, and that's true. But it just so happens to align with a very powerful torture method that will get us what we want. But I think they're immensely good at lying to themselves. So even if they have a conscience, I think their conscience is clear.
Now, is there any chance that this is part of her scheme to get them back so that she can continue to try to take them down?
Isn't that what we talked about like 5 times?
But I don't know. It seems like a more prevalent belief than I realized.
I mean, I'll say that, what's going to be really frustrating? If Carol has a change of heart and decides to fight back, people will be able to look back and say, well, that's how she felt the whole time. And it'll be ambiguous. Did she change her mind? Because this is how I see it going. This is not a ruse, but it will bring the hive back. And then when Manusos arrives and she gets back on board with reversing things, now it will work to her favor that the hive is back. It wasn't an intentional chess move, but it has rearranged the chessboard in a favorable way.
And now she has data, which will tell her to be much more cautious, because one wrong move and they'll all just disappear.
Right. She can't explode at them. She can't yell at them. So it might be ambiguous where people...
Not just that, but she can't inject them with truth serum, or she can't make them feel threatened.
Right. Injecting them with truth serum, I would say, off the board. Yes, I agree with that. Yelling at them. So
have we tried torture? Is torture on the table here?
A reference to a podcast that nobody will get. So I'm saying I think it might end up being ambiguous, where I will be able to say, look, things happened, the chessboard happened to be rearranged into a favorable position for her. So once she changes her mind and decides to fight again, it works out nicely. But other people will be able to say, there was no change of heart. She felt this way the entire time. You ignorant, sweet summer child. We'll see. I mean, I'm fully ready to be wrong about it. I see somebody else pointing out that Carol had no tears. I don't know. Do you always have tears when you're upset and making that kind of cry face? I don't know.
She looked pretty genuine. Why are you asking me?
It felt genuine to me, but we'll see. We'll see. I mean, the other in between, if I were to subscribe to the theory that it's a ruse, the kind of in between theory is that the feelings are real, but they're sort of being weaponized. Like, of course she'd be lonely, and I think she would genuinely be happy to see Zosha because she's that desperate for companionship and just having somebody else around, that all these feelings could be real, but the rational part of her brain is saying, let these feelings out so they will return. They will see that change of heart.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll see. Any other thoughts, Adam, on this episode?
For an episode that had, I guess some might say, had less excitement than others, we had a lot to talk about.
Well, yeah, I think it comes down to those like two pieces of the show. There's the information of what's happening on a grand scale in terms of humanity versus hive. That got virtually no movement this episode. The other piece is character. A lot happened from a character standpoint this episode. You can compare it to The Fly in Breaking Bad.
I was thinking that, actually.
Yeah.
Oh, one thing I wanted to add. Another clue in my mind that this is not some kind of scheme of hers, but this is just her being genuine, is that as far as we can tell, she's drinking pretty consistently again.
Mm-hmm.
And it does seem like they make a point of showing that she kind of loses a degree of self-control when she's drinking. And I think it's not a coincidence that they give the protagonist of this show like alcoholism, because that's one thing that kind of consumes her and changes who she is in a similar way that the hive consumes other people and changes who they are. And I don't think the show is trying to make us do this, but I think you easily could ask yourself the question of, obviously there are differences, but what do these things have in common too? And how can she be so hell bent on going after one thing, but not the other? And I've seen oh no, never mind. I misread something in the chat, but
my favorite theory that I saw on Reddit was that it's pretty suspicious that "come back," the circle is written around a manhole cover.
I just thought she was being. I just thought it was like she was being cute, and it's like a convenient place for the O.
Oh yeah, one fun fact I wanted to share. Like a couple weeks ago, somebody looked up the coordinates of this cul-de-sac on Google Maps, and they used the satellite imagery, and you could see it said "come back." The paint was there.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So there was a spoiler out there like a week or two ago.
That's awesome.
And I think if you look at it now, you can see a fresher satellite image, and you can still see some of the residue. Like you can see like a little bit of the K.
See, this is another very Vince Gilligan thing, which is just that the environment gradually undergoes these kind of silly changes that just stay there.
Yeah, the pizza on the roof is the most common go-to.
Yeah.
But yeah, the drone still being there.
The comeback thing.
Repeatedly sing the cloche. Yeah. It's pretty funny.
And more seriously now, also, like her backyard has that well of souls where Helen is buried.
That's right.
Like over a pretty short period of time, there have been a lot of changes in her immediate surroundings.
Yeah.
That just, she makes the change and it's just, there's nothing to undo it. So it just keeps going.
Yep. It's perpetual. Isn't there a word for that in video games? It's like perpetual environment.
Persistent.
Or something. Persistent. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So we love the episode. I am so excited for the next episode. I'm saddened by the fact that there's only 2 more left. A little bit of housekeeping. The instant take this Thursday. It's going to be as messy as the current dichotomy between Manusos and Carol, because we may not be available. So a few things might happen. Maybe it'll happen on schedule, but maybe it'll happen in the middle of the night. Like I'm going to get back home at 2 a.m. and I might sit down and record a live stream at 3 a.m. Could happen. Daniel's going to be abroad, so for him, that's the middle of the afternoon. It's perfect on his end. It might not happen at all. Maybe you don't get an instant take until Friday. We'll see. But just a heads up, don't necessarily expect us live at 10 a.m. right after the 10 p.m. right after the episode drops, unfortunately. But we'll get something out as soon as we can. And then we'll make it up to you with the finale. We're going to go full Saulcast. We used to do pre-show where we'll count down live to the episode premiering. We'll do the post-show. It's going to be fun. We're going to have a great time.
Costumes?
It's all good, man. What'd you say, Adam?
Costumes?
Maybe. Got like a yellow jacket. We'll find something. We'll be wearing our smiles, that's for sure.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, thank you everybody for watching. If you want to listen to these, you can find us in any podcast app by searching Pluribus for the rest of us, or check links in the description and in the comments. If you miss the live streams that get posted over on the podcast channel, if you're already on the podcast channel and you're like, where the hell do these stream? Well, they stream over on the main channel. Link in the description.
You just each channel sends the person to the other channel.
It's very confusing.
Yeah.
But this is how people do it. It's like, it's so funny. YouTube recently introduced a collaboration feature where on a video, you can officially add a collaborator. And so it'll say this video is made by One Take and Hack the Movies, for example, if I collaborate with Tony. And what that does is it basically serves the video to both audiences. But all that people are using the feature for is that people will post it on their second channel and then collaborate with their main channel. So this will get posted on One Take Podcast, and then it'll say posted by One Take Podcast and One Take. That's what everyone uses the feature for. And it's just going behind the curtain. If you want to know why this confusing mess happens, it's because the YouTube algorithm wants channels to be clean. When someone becomes a fan of a channel, it wants them to watch as many videos on that channel as possible. And One Take is primarily scripted video essay recap content. Podcast is very different. So if I put them both in the same channel, people will subscribe, they'll watch the video essay stuff, and then skip the podcasts. And it screws up the algorithm because it'll say, well, Daniel's watching the video essays but skipping the podcasts. He must not be a fan of the channel. I'm going to stop serving it up to him. So you have to separate this stuff out. That's why it gets so complicated. Okay. With that, I'm Gil.
I'm Adam.
And this is Pluribus for the rest of us. Full take.
Full take.